Police have identified the victim of Sunday night's deadly shooting in Rexdale as 61-year-old Delroy George Parks from Woodstock. We'll have the latest on the search for his killers coming up.
The Insurance Bureau of Canada has released its list of the most expensive cities for car theft claims in Ontario. We're going to tell you how Toronto ranks just ahead.
And the NDP wants a price cap on grocery store staples. We'll be joined by Jagmeet Singh coming up this hour.
Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at Noon. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latafat. Thanks for joining us. More reaction pouring in today after a shooting in the parking lot of North Albion Collegiate Sunday night left a 61-year-old man dead.
And CP24's Beatrice Vaisman joins us live with our continuing coverage of the investigation. Beatrice, you have some new information for us.
I do, Bakari. So about 3 hours after this shooting happened on Sunday night, police recovering a vehicle of interest. A police source telling CP24 just a few minutes ago that this car was found Monday morning, 2 a.m., about 4 kilometers from North Albion Collegiate. This is a vehicle that I'm told was part of a separate investigation here in 23 Division. It was being watched by officers, and the vehicle actually crashed into a pole roughly 4 kilometers away. The people inside of it got away, but police now have this vehicle in their custody, and they're looking to see if this vehicle of interest is now connected to this homicide Sunday night here at North Albion Collegiate. As for the reaction from people here in this area about the tragedy that unfolded, obviously they are shaken. There is a police command post parked directly across from the school here on Mount Olive Drive. This is a command post that people are telling me is helping them feel safer because, as we know, often a police presence acts as a deterrence for crime, especially if, and I'm saying if, police have not confirmed this, if it is proven to be a random act of violence like 2 other shootings were over the weekend. Here's some reaction from some of the students who are now back in school for the first time this week.
It's pretty big. Everyone's been talking about it. It's been like we've had announcements and people like they're giving help. Like at lunch, there's going to be in the library. There's going to be people to be there for you, like our guidance and social workers.
Most of it is targeted. I think it's gang-related stuff, and which is sad, of course. Like we still haven't improved after like years of it. I've heard like it's been happening for years now. We should have seen some improvement, but it's just getting worse. Even at our school, the gang activities is going up.
And obviously this gang activity is something that's of great concern, not only to the students who go to the school, to the families who live here in this community, but it's of concern to police as well. It's something that was reiterated by Superintendent Ron Tavener that when he spoke to us yesterday. It comes, again, as I mentioned, on the heels of 2 separate shootings over the weekend. Saturday evening, a 20-year-old man shot multiple times. This is at Albion Road and Martin Grove. He was taken to hospital, police saying he was a completely innocent person. And then a few hours later, a 14-year-old boy was shot coming out of an apartment building, also completely innocent. And then Sunday night, you had this tragedy here in the parking lot of North Albion, where we now know a 61-year-old man whose family has identified him to CP24 as Delroy George Parks. I'm told he's from Toronto. He's regular here in this community. He's been coming here to play soccer with his friends all the time for the last 30 years. And so this community is mourning this tragedy while still on edge, considering the uptick in violence in the general vicinity. The councillor who represents this community, Vincent Crisanti, he was here earlier this morning talking to constituents as well. And here's what he told me.
They're frightened at a whole new level now, because now it's random shooting. It's not targeted. So they feel that much more unsafe in their own homes. So Etobicoke North was under attack over the weekend. You know, as you just mentioned, 3 incidents in 3 separate places, and people getting shot. We lost a life. A father and a brother, and you know, he's somebody's son. Is no longer here because of what happened the other night. So we do have to step up our efforts.
So again, 61-year-old Delroy George Parks dead, 4 others shot, injured in hospital, at least 1 with life-altering injuries, according to police. And again, CP24 confirming with a police source that a vehicle of interest, a dark blue pickup truck, was recovered Monday morning around 2 a.m., about 4 kilometers from the scene. Police are now trying to link it to this homicide, see if there is a link. And obviously, they're eager to find the 2 suspects that police say got out of a dark-colored pickup truck, opened fire, spraying some 50 bullets into this crowd of 15 to 20 men who are just out here hanging out and socializing. Lena and Bakari.
Okay, continuing our coverage live, CP24's Beatrice Baseman. Thank you.
Well, Ontario's police watchdog is investigating a fatal police shooting in the East End.
And police responded to Ellesmere Road, east of Warden. This was yesterday afternoon for a report of a man threatening people with a hammer. Two officers responded. One deployed a taser. The other shot the man. He was rushed to hospital. That's where he was pronounced dead. And the man shot by police has not been identified. Well, the possibility of a TTC strike is just days away. TTC spokesperson Stuart Green says that he is still hopeful that a deal can be reached, but people should plan ahead for a possible service disruption.
We're 2.5 days away. Midnight Thursday into Friday. That's sort of the deadline that's been set. I think we would ask people to stay tuned to CP24 and other stations, their media sources, our website, our social media channels. We will communicate all information as soon as we possibly can. The old adage, no news is good news, is very true here. We will update people if anything needs to be updated in terms of any service impact. Our commitment here is to avoid anything like that.
And CTV's political commentator Scott Reed says a full-on strike, that would be a bad look for this city.
I think people in Toronto will be up in arms. It's so difficult to move around this city already. All of the lagging challenges we've had with public transit and the TTC specifically since the pandemic. And then we're going to compound that with a strike. I heard the union leader on the radio with our friend John Moore this morning, and he was giving no quarter. Now, I think what's going to be really interesting is you would expect, if you're drawing this up on the chalkboard, that it will go down to the 11th hour, because you would expect that no one wants to blink until then. But this is a really big test for the city leadership. They just can't allow this to happen.
Yeah, more than 11,000 TTC workers could walk off the job Friday. The union, representing operators, collectors, station staff, and other frontline employees, says that it wants to see improvements to wages, pensions, and job security. It's warned of a total disruption of service if a deal is not reached.
Toronto tops the list of the most expensive cities for car theft claims.
Yeah, CP24's Steve Ryan joins us live with more from the latest report by the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Steve.
Yeah, Bakari and Lena, the Insurance Bureau of Canada has said that claims for auto thefts have increased 524% since 2018. They said that this problem is now a crisis and it is having a significant impact on insurance premiums for everybody. Since 2023, the claims have surpassed $1 billion for the very first time. So we have covered, and I've spoken with many police chiefs over the past 18 months who have been calling on the federal government to strengthen the penalties when it comes to convictions for auto thefts. Political leaders like Patrick Brown in Brampton has been calling on the governments to tighten the borders, because a lot of the vehicles are stolen by organized crime groups and they're shipped overseas where they're sold for incredible profits. So this is a significant problem that the police are dealing with. But when the police deal with an auto theft problem, they're dealing with it reactively, not proactively. And the proactive approach would be deterrence. And the deterrence, according to law enforcement, would be tougher sentences when it comes to those who are convicted of auto theft. We did get reaction earlier on from a person in the auto industry. And here's what we were told.
In 2022, we took a look at some data about what the increase in auto theft claims looked like. And at that point, nationally, it broke $1 billion, which was record-breaking. 2023 data we now have access to. Ontario alone experienced over $1 billion in auto theft claims in 2023. So we dug a little bit deeper to see which communities were most impacted. And the results of that were our list of the top 10 most impacted communities.
And as you guys have been reporting, Toronto is on top of that list of 10. 8 of the top 10 are in the GTA, and Toronto's increase was 561% since 2018. Just staggering numbers. Back to the desk.
All right, Steve Ryan reporting live. Thank you, Steve. More convocation ceremonies are scheduled for today at the University of Toronto amid the ongoing pro-Palestinian protest on campus.
And dozens of graduates crossed the stage at Convocation Hall to receive their diplomas yesterday, with several holding up Palestinian flags or wearing scarves bearing the word Palestine. More than 30 graduation ceremonies are scheduled to take place through June 21st as the university seeks a court injunction to end the encampment. The school has expressed concern about the encampment's impact on graduation events.
Registration for the city's summer recreation programs begin today.
More than 10,000 courses are available this year, including swimming, sports, yoga and fitness, and arts and crafts. Today's registrations are for residents in Etobicoke, York, Toronto, and East York. Registration for those in North York and Scarborough opens tomorrow. The city says that more than 83,000 spaces are available for people of all ages and skill levels. Programs run from July 2nd until August 30th.
All right, it's 23 degrees out there. Not quite summer yet, but it is certainly beginning to feel that way. CP24's Courtney Heels joins us live from Woodbine Beach on what is shaping up to be a really gorgeous day. Perfect location too, Court. How's it going?
It's so nice down here, Lena, and we're giving you a live look at the water. You see some people out on the water. I think they're skidooing or down there, ski-dooing, and also, taking in, just a gorgeous day. I mean, we have really, really nice weather. This is an absolute treat for June. I want to bring in Joyce. Joyce, I've stopped you. I know you're in the middle of a walk here. How do you describe this weather? How are you enjoying it so far?
Just lovely. This is my kind of weather. I love the summer, and I just feel so lucky to be able to come down here and enjoy the boardwalk so much.
Yeah, especially I felt like it was a very gray winter. Would you agree with that? It was gray, it was wet?
Gray, wasn't too bad, but this, makes such a difference. It's like night and day.
Are you looking forward to the summer?
Very much. Yeah. And for me, the hotter the better. Yeah. I love it.
We're the same. Joyce, thank you so much. A pleasure speaking with you. Enjoy the rest of the day. Just gorgeous weather, as they say. Lena Bakari, weather to take advantage of. I can tell you tomorrow it's going to change a little bit with some rain in the forecast. Over to you.
All right, CP24's Courtney Hills. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Courtney.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, we're going to take a look at some new data released by the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Heart and Stroke is releasing new data today to mark 10 years of the fast signs of stroke PSA in Canada. And for a closer look at this, we're joined live by Patrice Lindsay, lead of the Stroke Best Practices Strategy at Heart and Stroke. Patrice, good afternoon. First off, let's describe FAST. What is the acronym for and how does it work?
So FAST is a quick way to remember the signs of stroke. F stands for face, is one side of the face drooping. A stands for arms. If you try to lift your arms or have someone lift your arms, is one side either not moving or very weak and unable to be lifted. S is for speech. Does it sound all jumbled and slurred, or even are they speaking but not making sense with their words? And T is for time. This is a medical emergency, and every minute counts.
And Patrice, along with that, why is this so important with relation to the increased risk of heart attack or stroke for Canadians?
So we have over almost a million people living with stroke right now, and over 100,000 new cases every year. That's one every 5 minutes. And if we act fast, people have a much better chance of recovery. The longer we wait, the more brain cells that can die, 1.9 million a minute, resulting in a much more difficult recovery.
And along with that, how important is it to actually remain calm and act fast, when the signs of a stroke are actually visible?
Every minute counts. So knowing the signs, and you don't have to have all three, any one of those signs of stroke, it's important to call 911 or emergency medical services immediately. Make sure the person's safe. Make sure they're not going to fall and hurt themselves. And then take advice from the EMS and the ambulance when they arrive. Those are the best things we can do to have the best outcome possible.
And along with that, how does high blood pressure factor in all of this?
It's the number one cause of stroke. So increases in blood pressure are bad for your heart, bad for your brain, but they're the number one cause of stroke. If people can know their numbers, have conversations with their family physicians, other healthcare team, pharmacists about that and manage them, we can reduce stroke significantly.
And then how does this correlate with the new data?
Well, the new data shows us that not enough people in Canada know the signs of stroke. And that results in delays in seeking medical treatment and results in poor outcomes.
And along with that, we have to also talk about newcomers and ethnically diverse communities. Put this together for us.
So newcomers and people from Black communities, South Asian communities, our Indigenous communities had much poorer knowledge of the signs of stroke. And at the same time, they're actually at higher risk of having a stroke. So we're working closely with them to find strategies that are culturally appropriate, culturally safe, ones that they develop with our support rather than us just telling them what to do. It's much more effective if it's coming from within the community.
And along with that, Patrice, what are conversations that Canadians should be having with their doctors about this? And also, can you talk about the aspirin rule?
So there is no aspirin rule for stroke. That's for people having a heart attack. And I know that gets confusing. Having conversations with your doctor at any age, because we're seeing strokes start younger, like in people's 30s and 40s. Know your blood pressure, talk about your family history, talk about other risk factors. Know what those risk factors are. Talk about yours and think about a plan to help reduce your risk. The earlier you start, and I mean like kids in grade school, the improvement you can make in your health and outcomes later is tremendous.
And Patrice, with more than 800,000 deaths every year related to this, how do you want to end this interview?
Know the signs and don't shy away. Don't think, oh, well, maybe I'll wait. It's act fast. You're better off acting and being wrong than not acting and leaving a person with significant deficits.
Okay. Patrice Lindsay, lead of the Stroke Best Practices Strategy at Heart and Stroke. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, we'll be joined live by federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh to discuss the price cap his party's calling for on groceries.
Welcome back. The federal New Democrats want a price cap on grocery store staples if the Liberal government can't convince grocers to bring down the prices themselves. For more on this, we're joined live by NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. Mr. Singh, welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining us. So you're calling for this price cap on grocery store staples. First of all, I know that the bill the motion has been tabled. Tell me more about your idea.
So this is in response to what people are saying again and again, the cost of groceries are so high. We hear those stories, we hear people really frustrated, and we're seeing the impacts. 1 in 4 Canadians are literally skipping their meals because they can't afford their groceries. And they're saying very specifically they're skipping meals because the cost of groceries are too high. We know food bank usage is at a record high. And all the while, people know when they go into a grocery store and they're paying more than ever before, they know on the other end of that, the CEO of that corporate grocery store is making record profits. And so it really galls people. It makes them angry and frustrated. What's even more frustrating has been Justin Trudeau's response. He said, you need to be better shoppers, and really suggested people should look at grocery flyers, which was really insulting and not really a meaningful solution. And secondly, he said, I'm going to ask the CEOs of these corporations, I'm going to ask them nicely to stabilize prices. Also insulting, and it failed. So we're saying it's time's up. We need a more bold and direct solution given how extreme things are getting. So we're calling for basically a straightforward plan. Force corporate grocery stores to lower the prices on essential items, on staple items, or else we will impose a price cap. And where we got this idea, we saw other jurisdictions do this. It's been effective, and it is something that meets how serious things are. We know that neither Justin Trudeau nor, frankly, Pierre Poilievre has the courage to go after what is really the major driver pushing up the cost of groceries, which is these big corporations ripping you off. We want to stop them from doing that, and we want to bring down the price of groceries.
I think a lot of Canadians would agree with you about how frustrated they are when it comes to these sky-high grocery prices. But the question I have for you, Mr. Singh, is how would this cap actually work? How would the government force companies like Loblaw to agree to this when it's taken this long, this many years to sign on to the grocery code of conduct? How do you get this done?
Well, that's actually a great question. The grocery code of conduct was voluntary. And so companies said, maybe we'll do it, maybe we won't. It's voluntary. And it doesn't really actually bring down the price of groceries. It just provides a list of things that the companies are going to do, the way they're going to approach consumers. It's not enough. It's not serious enough given how bad things are. What we're saying is it's a very powerful threat. Either they lower the prices or we do it for them. And the way we do that is a number of mechanisms that are at our disposal. We have different forms of price caps now that exist in our country. Rent control is an example of a price cap. France, for example, has put in place a price cap and has brought down the price of 5,000 products over 75 retailers. In Canada, it's a lot easier because sadly, we don't have much competition. We really only have Loblaws, Metro, Sobeys, Walmart, and Costco that are the major. When you go to a grocery store, it's going to be one of those 5. And so it's a lot easier to go after them directly and say, lower it or else. We can't afford to have the lackadaisical, lazy approach of the Liberals, which is so out of touch of what people are going through. And that's why we're proposing this concrete plan.
I have some early reaction coming in from the industry minister, François-Philippe Champagne. He does not think this is going to work, does not think it's going to be it's a good idea. He says you have commodities which are traded on a global scale. So think about sugar, think about wheat. How can you have a price in one particular region? Your response to that?
We can absolutely put a price on the essential items. We can force these companies to lower them. These companies have admitted that they do it. Loblaws has its own in-brand brand, the no-name brand. It's its in-store brand. And they have made it very clear that they set prices. They decided to freeze prices. We heard a lot of news about that. So they absolutely have control over the prices that they set.
But if the price of sugar, let's say, goes up globally, how do you expect grocers in this country to comply with the cap?
Well, we're saying that you're making record profits. This is not like you're making just good profits. You're posting record profits at a time of record need, of record desperation. So serious time call for serious steps. And the fact that Canadians are hurting so badly at a time when these grocers aren't just making good profits, it's got to be pointed out. They're literally making record profits. So I don't have any sympathy for these large corporate grocery stores that are ripping off Canadians. I want them to lower the prices of essentials or else. I don't have any sympathy for Justin Trudeau, frankly, who has failed to use the power he has to give people a break and thinks that you can just wait for years for more competition. Sure, in the long run, we need more competition, but right now, Canadians need a break, and that's what our plan will do.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, always appreciate your time. Thank you for this.
Thank you so much.
And coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, police have identified the victim of Sunday night's deadly shooting in Rexdale as 61-year-old Delroy George Parks from Woodstock. We're going to have the latest on the investigation next. Police have identified the victim of Sunday night's deadly shooting in Rexdale as 61-year-old Delroy George Parks. We're going to have the latest on the search for his killers coming up.
The Insurance Bureau of Canada has released its list of the most expensive cities for car theft claims in Ontario. We'll tell you how Toronto ranks up ahead.
And with the decision tomorrow on a potential interest rate cut by the Bank of Canada, CTV sought out the advice of 50 Canadian mortgage brokers. We're going to tell you what they said coming up.
Good afternoon and welcome to CP24 Live at noon. I'm Lena Latifat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. More reaction today after shooting in the parking lot of North Albion Collegiate Sunday night, which left a 61-year-old man dead.
CP24's Beatrice Faisman joins us live with an update on the investigation. Tell us more about what you are learning, Beatrice.
Lena, police source confirming to CP24 that a vehicle of interest has been located by Toronto police. It was found Monday around 2 o'clock in the morning, about 4 kilometers away from the scene. I'm told this is a vehicle. It's a blue pickup truck, by the way. And you'll remember that yesterday the homicide detective in charge of this case told us that it was a dark colored pickup truck involved. This vehicle is a blue pickup truck. It was found crashed into a tree or a pole, again, roughly 4 kilometers away. This was a vehicle, I'm told, that was involved in a separate police investigation here at 23 Division. And so now police are trying to determine if this was the same vehicle that was used by 2 suspects when they arrived here in front of North Albion Collegiate Institute Sunday around 11 o'clock. 2 suspects getting out, opening fire, spraying a group of 15 to 20 men who were gathered here socializing, playing dominoes, hanging out with about 50 bullets. And when it comes to the students, they are back in school today. This is the first day back this week. It was closed yesterday during the police investigation. Students that I've been talking to are telling me they do feel worried. They feel scared, and they've noticed an uptick in gang activity just in the area, in the vicinity. And so it's something that's top of mind for them, and there are supports being made available to them here at school today. But here's what a pair of students told me earlier this morning.
I'm worried, like, there's a lot of people, even if it is targeted, like, kids seeing that's not good. Just, I don't want my family to be a part of that, anyone. And it's just a problem, because I feel like the area, like Rexdale area, has kind of just been ignored by the government, and I feel like maybe something needs to be done to get jobs and maybe help people get out and maybe don't need to feel like they need that.
More kids, being influenced by, of course, their surroundings and environment, and going into gangs and stuff, which is really apparent if you're like in the school. You can like really see who it is.
When it comes to the people involved in this just awful tragedy, Lena and Bakari, we now know it was 61-year-old Delroy George Parks, his family identifying him to CP24 and CTV News yesterday. He was from this area, I'm told, grew up in this area, has been coming back to this area for the last 30 years to play soccer here with his friends. 4 others were also struck by gunfire. At least one of them, police say, has life-altering injuries. And certainly it's terrorized this community. It's terrorized this neighborhood. People are genuinely fearing for their safety and the safety of others, especially if, and only if, I say police haven't confirmed, if this is a random attack. There are 2 other random attacks that happened in Etobicoke North over the weekend, where a 20-year-old man and a 14-year-old boy, completely innocent victims, were both shot. Police have not made any arrests in either of those 2 shootings either. The councillor for this ward, Vincent Crisanti, was here again today talking to constituents, and here's what he tells me about what he's hearing.
People are still very terrified, given what's happened. Rapid fire, 50 shots fired just across from where they live. So they're afraid for their lives. I've been speaking with more of my constituents this morning. Yesterday, I was here again last night, and I was speaking with the principal of the school and the vice principal and also the superintendent, about what we could do to try and help keep this community safer. At the end of the day, we got to remember that, we got to improve our efforts in doing better outreach to get to the young people that are committing these crimes before the gangs get to them.
So again, a blue pickup truck now recovered by police. This is a vehicle of interest. 2 suspects still outstanding. Bakari and Lena.
Okay, CP24's Beatrice Vaisman continuing our coverage. Thank you. Well, Ontario's police watchdog is investigating a fatal police shooting that's happened in the East End.
Police responded to Ellesmere Road east of Warden yesterday afternoon for reports of a man threatening people with a hammer. 2 officers responded, and one deployed a taser, and the other officer shot the man. He was rushed to hospital where he was pronounced dead. The man was shot by police, has not been identified. To Queen's Park now, where the Ontario NDP is calling for urgent action after a vulnerable child died of a seizure after being left alone in a schoolroom in Trenton. Let's listen in live.
A lifelong and tireless advocate for all disabilities. And from the AODA Alliance. David?
Thank you. 1/3 of a million students with disabilities in Ontario schools have for generations been treated as second-class citizens, not because educators want it to be that way, but because our education system is designed and operated on the bogus premise that it is first and foremost for kids without disabilities. Increased funding is, of course, essential, but it's only one part of the picture. We need the provincial government to step up to the plate to pass strong new standards governing all school boards, setting basic requirements for accessibility and safety for students with disabilities. During question period today, the education minister said he's waiting before he takes action to hear from a coroner's investigation. Nonsense. The minister and the government have sat for almost 2.5 years on a comprehensive report by a government-appointed expert committee detailing what needs to be done at the provincial level, legislatively, to protect accessibility and safety for students with disabilities. I had the privilege of serving on that committee. It reported almost 2.5 years ago that the provincial government has given no policy direction at all to 72 school boards on when, how, and with what safeguards an isolation room or sensory room can be used and a student with a disability left there. And no data is provincially collected on how and when they are used. We recommended that students with disabilities need provincial safeguards. Nothing has been announced since then. We need that action now, not after some coroner's inquiry perhaps reaches the same conclusion and gives the same recommendations that the government's been sitting on for almost 2.5 years.
Thank you, David. Kate?
Hi, my name is Kate Logue, and I'm Vice President of Community Outreach with the Ontario Autism Coalition. I'm going to start today with a statement that was written by Brenda Davis, Landon's mom, that she has asked me to read on her behalf. On May 14th, I received a text from my son's school saying there was an emergency. I tried to call, but the call didn't go through, so I rushed to the school as fast as I could. Minutes later, I walked into the classroom to find my son on a stretcher, receiving CPR. His hand hanging to the side, fingers already blue. That's when it hit me. This isn't seizure intervention. This is resuscitation. Landon was rushed to the hospital, and after every intervention available to bring my boy back, me praying to God not to take my baby, begging Landon to wake up, he was pronounced dead. I don't know how long he was gone before someone discovered him alone and cold in that room. The last time I saw my boy's beautiful smile was when I dropped him off at his school at 10:30 a.m. that morning. My last memory of Landon is in a casket surrounded by his favorite toys. Now I visit his grave every morning. I pick wildflowers for him alone. We used to pick flowers together. Now I leave them at his grave. I'm broken. My boy is gone. His laugh is a memory. His light snuffed out too soon. I will forever be haunted. And she asks that everybody hold their babies tight. That's the end of her statement. This should not have happened. This mom should not have had to write these words. And we should not be sitting here having this conversation. Vulnerable children with disabilities have a right to a safe and meaningful education. And parents should be able to send them to school without worrying that they may not come home at the end of the day. The Ontario Autism Coalition has been warning this government for years that a vulnerable child was going to die due to insufficient supports at school, and here we are. I stood here 4 months ago in this very spot, and we discussed a boy named Zach who had eloped from his school without the school even being aware. And he was found in the middle of a busy intersection in the midst of a January snowstorm with no coat on. Minister Lecce claimed that an investigation would be launched, and here we are 4 months later, and it is pretty clear that not a finger was lifted. Are we really to expect that he will launch a meaningful investigation into what happened to Landon? It's hard to believe that. This mother deserves answers about what happened to her son that day and why. The OAC has been advocating for years about the dangers that exist in our special education system when adequate supports and staffing are not provided. In what world is it okay for a student with a potentially deadly seizure order to be left alone for even minutes, let alone for what clearly seems like a lot longer period of time? As a community, parents of children with disabilities are demanding swift justice for Landon. And we are insisting that this government immediately commit to providing all children with disabilities safety at school. It is shocking that that's where we're at. We're demanding the bare minimum that our kids can go to school and be safe. We're not even talking about their access to a meaningful education. True systemic change needs to happen to the delivery of special education in Ontario without delay. Landon should still be here today, full stop. And this government needs to not only explain why this tragedy happened, but take immediate action to ensure that it never happens again.
All right, an emotional press conference at Queen's Park this hour about the death of an epileptic student in Ontario who died last month. This has sparked a lot of anger from parents and educators. The NDP and advocates are calling for urgent action and for more resources in schools for students with disabilities, saying they've received no assurances from the Ford government. That's a story we'll keep a really close eye on throughout the day.
Looking at other headlines, Toronto tops the list of the most expensive cities for car theft claims.
CP24 Steve Ryan joins us live with more from the latest report by the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Steve.
Yeah, Alina Bakari, for the first time ever, the Insurance Bureau of Canada has released the top 10 costliest cities for auto theft, and Toronto, sadly, is number one. Their auto theft claims have surged by 561%. That is a staggering increase in auto claims. There's been $1 billion in claims made in 2023. That is the highest number ever. So the auto industry, the Insurance Bureau of Canada, released these numbers today. And this goes along with what police chiefs have been saying that I've been interviewing over the past 18 months. And that is that auto theft is a significant problem. In fact, the Insurance Bureau of Canada calls it a crisis. And it is having a great effect on insurance premiums as a result of all these claims. So when the police get involved, they dismantle and disrupt criminal organizations that commit auto theft, but oftentimes that is reactive. It's done after the deed is done, and those cars are already stolen, and oftentimes they're already replaced by the insurance companies. So there needs to be more of a proactive approach, and this is why the senior police leaders who I've talked with, including politicians as well, Patrick Brown comes to mind in Brampton, they're talking about asking the feds constantly to strengthen the criminal convictions and the penalties for auto thefts and tightening the borders as well, because a lot of the big business, when cars are stolen, they go overseas. Now, we did get reaction from a person in the auto insurance industry earlier on, and here's some of that conversation. Let's listen.
It's going to take a whole of society approach. Everybody's got to come to the table. Everybody's got to work towards the solutions when it comes toward combating auto theft. So the federal government has come out with an auto theft action plan, which it contains the results of a lot of thought, a lot of consultation, and a lot of really good work. Certainly the province of Ontario has made incredible investments in dedicated auto theft law enforcement teams as well as prosecution services. There's certainly more that we can all do, insurers as well. We want to keep raising the alarm bells. We want to keep sharing the data that we have.
8 of the top 10 cities are in the GTA. Very quickly, they are Toronto, Brampton, Mississauga, Vaughan, Markham, Ottawa, Oakville, Richmond Hill, Hamilton, and London. It's in the back of the desk.
All right, Steve Ryan reporting live. Thank you, Steve. Well, it's not quite summer yet, but it's certainly starting to feel that way.
Yeah, CP24's Courtney Hills joins us live from Woodbine Beach. You know, what's a beautiful Tuesday, Court?
Yeah, what a treat. It's such a nice experience to be down by the waterfront, especially because we're dealing with quite a bit of humidity in this city right now. Depending on where you are, you probably feel it. Feels like closer to 30 in some parts, but down by the waterfront, guys, it's just gorgeous here. And what's also really nice is it's actually kind of quiet. So we're along Woodbine. You can see people are enjoying a walk along the boardwalk here, people walking their dogs, getting a little exercise. Again, there is that breeze off the waterfront, so it's really, really comfortable. And we've been talking to people out taking advantage of these gorgeous conditions. I'll let you hear from them.
Just lovely. This is my kind of weather. I love the summer, and I just feel so lucky to be able to come down here and enjoy the boardwalk so much.
You come here and you forget where you are. We're down in downtown Toronto, yet we're here at a beautiful beach. It's gorgeous.
The weather is good. I just coming out from the gym and told myself to take a walk around the beach, and yeah.
Great way to spend the afternoon, right? Enjoy the conditions while you can. Of course, it is expected to change a little bit later on. Not today, but into tomorrow, there's a very good chance we'll be dealing with some rain. And that seems to be something a lot of people are aware of. And of course, you never really know with the weather. When it comes to June, it can be a little bit cooler. It can be hotter. So today, it really just feels like it's perfect, guys. And that's why we figured it'd be great to spend a few hours down by the waterfront. By the way, lots of parking too. So for anybody watching, if you're planning to come down and enjoy some time by the water, I think you'll find some space. And again, the conditions expected to change tomorrow. So enjoy it while you can. Over to you.
Feeling like 29 out there right now. Thanks so much for this, Courtney. Enjoy these conditions. Coming up next on CP24 Live at noon, CTV sought out the advice of 50 Canadian mortgage brokers. CTV National's Tony Grace tells us what they said coming up.
With the decision tomorrow on a potential interest rate cut by the Bank of Canada, there's going to be lots of questions about mortgage strategy.
So CTV sought out the advice of 50 Canadian mortgage brokers, and CTV's Tony Grace has a look at what they said. This is interesting, Tony. Thanks for joining us to talk about this. What did brokers say when it comes to picking a fixed or variable mortgage? Because that's a really big question for a lot of people right now.
It sure is, Lena Bakari. Thanks so much. Good to be with you once again, as always. Look, yeah, that is the question, right? What do I go with? Do I go with a fixed rate where I will know my interest rate over a set period of time, or do I roll the dice on variable and take the chance that it could go up or down? Well, let's get right to the answer. As we brought that question to, as you mentioned, dozens of mortgage brokers across the country. 59% of them told us the best type of mortgage to have right now is a fixed rate. Only 7% said a variable rate. And the next slide we get to will kind of point to one of the reasons why, because when we also ask those mortgage brokers, what's the lowest rate you can offer right now for both fixed and variable? Variable was 5.9% right now, but fixed was 4.34. And that one kind of surprised me a little bit. I don't think we'd seen numbers in the low fours for a little while. We had been hearing 6s and 7s a little while ago. So that's the lay of the land right now as far as rates go, and fixed versus variable. But another key question was, if you're already in a variable rate mortgage, should you get out of it now and lock into a fixed rate?
Right.
And let's get to the answers on that, because the brokers told us in this case, 49% said, no, you shouldn't get out of your variable mortgage. So half of them. And I think the thinking there, guys, is that, we've kind of been through the worst of the storm as far as rates going up are concerned. So variables have nowhere to go but down right now, much like everyone's expecting the Bank of Canada will drop its rate by a 0.25 percentage point either tomorrow or later in July. The variable would be expected to move in lockstep with that. And guys, about a third of mortgage brokers are telling us in all these questions, it depends highly on your financial situation. For example, if you're someone who can, barely afford to make the payment each month and have only a very little bit left over, then that's far different than someone who has enough to put into savings every month as well when it comes to which way you should roll the dice. So a lot to consider on the eve of an expected and possible interest rate drop. Our digital team over at ctvnews.ca has done a really deep dive on all of this, guys. Stories from mortgage holders across Ontario, information specific to Toronto and other Canadian cities. It's a critical time as all of these factors come together.
And Tony, what did you find in terms of how people are feeling? Are they leaning toward a fixed mortgage right now? Because anybody who has a variable rate has been burned for the last few months.
They certainly have, and that's the temptation. I mean, I was speaking with a couple of mortgage holders, in my circle who are who decided to ride that variable wave
Yeah.
out over the last couple of years, and now it's just the payments are unbelievable. We also heard from one family who's faced with the prospect of $3,000 going up to $5,100. The temptation is there to sign on for a fixed rate product right now, and it's not hard to see why, because that's what the mortgage brokers are recommending, but that's also what the rates are telling us would give you at least that degree of certainty over whatever time period you choose when you make that decision, guys.
And Tony, what's the word on the economic block? What are economists saying about tomorrow's Bank of Canada announcement? Does it look like the central bank is interested in slashing the rate for the first time in a long time?
The last I heard when we were looking at Bay Street and you know, those who are really immersed in this is that it was leaning 80% toward a rate cut tomorrow of 0.25%. Remember, it's not going to be a big rate cut, and it's not expected that they're going to happen quickly, but 80% leaning toward tomorrow being the day, guys.
Okay. CTV's Tony Grace ahead of tomorrow's Bank of Canada rate decision. Thanks a lot, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching CP24 Live at Noon.